and welcome to AudioCodes UC Talks with me, Jay Wyatt, and my colleagues Shane Hoey and Scott Middlericks.
Good morning, Jay.
Morning, and good evening, Shane.
Good evening, yes.
And Shane, you asked me not to point out the fact that you've got a haircut that looks like a convict haircut, but I know we're all suffering from COVID hair. I've opted for a comb over now because I've got too much hair to spike up, and Scott, you just got out of bed, so
yeah, I'm just letting it go.
So in today's video blog, we're going to talk about user personas and device selection, both of which will obviously improve user adoption. So I know in one of our previous sessions, I think it was organizational readiness, can't even get my words out today, we talked briefly about user personas and the importance of identifying the different user types within an organization. So, Scott, I know you were very eloquent in the way that you answered this last time, but can you explain what user personas are and why going through the process is essential?
You're setting me up, Jay. I'm not sure I'm going to be as eloquent this morning, but yeah, I think you did a pretty good job of hitting the high points there in the intro as far as I think of user personas as kind of thinking about classifying users. So across an organization, and I've had several conversations with organizations that are 20,000 plus seats
Wow.
this past week, in the past couple of weeks here, that we can't go through and investigate every single user. So what we want to do is classify them, and a different way of saying classify is persona. So we use the term role persona mapping. So we want to look at different roles within the organization, different personas within the organization, and map them to kind of the features and functionality that they need. When you think about, say, a receptionist or an executive and executive admin versus a kind of a typical knowledge worker versus like a frontline worker, a factory floor worker. These are all different. These are kind of some examples of personas and how they might interact or have different needs for for not only the phone system itself, but as kind of a topic of conversation today is the actual device that they use to interact with the phone system. So that process of understanding roles, personas, and mapping those to features and functionalities and devices is a critical process in the overall planning of your system rollout.
Okay, awesome. And so Shane, I mean, do you feel it's an essential process too?
Definitely, and not only just for people, but as we were mentioning, devices. So if you think of devices, also have personas. So we have meeting rooms, we have common area phones and public area phones. They all have different uses. Sometimes they're using conferencing. Other times it's just pick up, make a phone call, ring the local taxi company, and that's all the phone's used for. So there's all these complexities that we need to look at, investigate, and see how the business is running. So personas is really important in that initial planning stage. Okay, and I actually interesting this week, and I'm gonna throw it out there. It was a Microsoft post from a Microsoft employee. It's kind of like a bit of a poll really, but I read in this post about headsets versus desk phones, and I'm really interested to know what both of your views are. Jamie Stark?
So
is this from Jamie Stark?
It may well have been. I mean, Scott, what's your view, and what are you seeing in the US in terms of sort of headsets and desk phones?
Yeah, well, those are two very different questions, Jay. What's my view versus what are the companies that I'm talking to? I'm a big advocate of headsets. I like having my hands free. I like to be able to interact with the keyboard or take notes or what have you. So I like having a headset. A lot of organizations, especially if this is their first foray into unified communications, kind of a modern communication system, their first thought is we need to replace all of the phones that are sitting on the desk today. But what I've seen from a lot of organizations is that they go down that road initially, and it's hard to convince them otherwise, but they go down that road initially, and then they end up using headsets by and large. So they're making the investment almost twice. Now, there are certain use cases where you need a phone. You need kind of a backup, because think about IP phones, and I'm sure, Shane, you're going to talk about this a little bit. they're a standalone box. You don't need a computer, whereas with the headset, you need something to plug that headset into, where the phone can stand alone and you don't need the computer. So there are definite use cases for those IP phones, but by and large, especially think about your knowledge workers, the people that are kind of have a desk or tied to a computer for most of their day. Headsets in my opinion, are definitely the way to go.
Okay.
Yeah. Once again, I was going to say it comes back to the personas, right?
Yeah.
Because it really comes down to that. Because one of the key differences I always say about headsets are a personal device. So a lot of people like ourselves, we carry our headsets with, to every company. All the headsets I've got are my own personal headsets. They're a personal device. Whereas the phones are a company and can be reused. It's not like you can take a headset and give it to person A and then person B comes along 2 minutes later and uses that same headset. That can't happen for, health reasons. So I think that's an important, and that's where it comes back to those personas, is that it's the type of user as well. So if it's, I'm trying to think of the word, I can't think of the word, where the real turnover, you've got a high turnover of staff.
Yeah.
In headsets may not be financial sense. It may be better off just having a few common area phones that log on, log off, and so forth. Hot desking. Sorry, hot desking is the other word I was looking for. Yeah.
Well, I think within EMEA, I've seen some regions have a preference for headsets, and especially like within the Nordics. I mean, you can't even talk to them about desk phones, whereas other areas have, they have a preference for desk phones. I mean, my view overall is to give users the devices that allow them to do their jobs effectively based on their user personas, their user roles. And even running a device bar session as part of that kind of organizational readiness workshops, that will allow users to see what devices are available to them. And it will also give the opportunity to guide users on the pros and cons of some devices. And Shane, just as you've pointed out, choosing between headsets or desk phones, it does have financial implications. Some headsets can cost as much or if not more than a desk phone. So, looking at headsets, they do tend to be personal devices and are rarely reused or redistributed. So a desk phone can be redeployed, and if an employee leaves. So it's a very important point there that over the life cycle of any sort of phone system, you may be buying 3 or 4 different headsets to one desk phone. It's just things for those that deal with the finances to keep in mind.
Something you mentioned, Jay, that I think it's we almost kind of glossed over, but I think it's an important part of the process, especially if this is your first endeavor into using headsets, is that even within headsets, we keep calling them personal devices, and that's true, but they're also personal preferences, because you come in single ear, double ear, over the head, in ear, behind the neck. Everybody has their own preference. And if IT just comes in and says, this is the one that you're going to have, you're going to have resistors to that. So having a selection of devices that you've culled down from the almost infinite selection that's in the marketplace is an important part of that process. And what we, like you mentioned, Jay, that's what we call a device selection bar.
Yeah.
I got a great story. We've got to cut it. I'll keep it really quick. My first foray into Link, 2010, was exactly this. So the receptionist, she was used to the old school phone. She had an old school reception desk. So the company brought her the best headset they could find, and they spent a couple $100 on this headset to get all around the office. They gave it to her, and it messed up the hair. And she wouldn't wear it because it wouldn't work with her hair. And because her hair, she was, long hair and she just found it really, really uncomfortable. So that was the first time I was like, wow, that really, you just don't think of it. And the other thing we didn't mention is people with disabilities. And that's another time where I actually did some work where people weren't able to use headsets because of that. So, sorry. I've made us go over time now.
That's okay. I was going to say, I mean, you don't have to worry about wearing a headset, right, Shane? Well, we were bad hair day today.
Correct.
So, guys, Thank you ever so much. And thank you for watching. Do look out for our next video where we'll be talking about licensing.